Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for letting me spend a few minutes with you today. As always, it is well appreciated. Um, Got to get the advertisements out of the way, right? So do the like, share, subscribe things. You know, the books are available at authorjerrymitchell.com, or you go to giveguide90.com and follow the links from there. Got that out of the way. Now we can look at what I want to talk about today, and that's going to be fun. I, I hope that what I say makes sense. Let me start there, because it's kind of hard to describe in just a few minutes what I want to describe. Okay. So let's start with this question. Do you know somebody who maybe enjoys the adrenaline rush of what might seem or appear to be a hectic, chaotic situation? We think of doctors and nurses in emergency departments, right? They're running around, and it's just looks like organized chaos, right? Maybe you know somebody into racing. They race, the little cars that run around the local dirt tracks. Maybe they race motorcycles. Maybe they race, watch NASCAR races, watch Indy races, those kind of things, the Formula One races. And it looks like these cars are out there just kind of going well, they're all going the same way, but you know what I mean? They're just kind of weaving in and out and doing their thing. And it looks very disorganized. But if auto racing were really that disorganized, there'd be a lot more accidents. In fact, accidents occur when accidents actually occur when somebody does something nobody's expecting, right? Or there's a problem, a mechanical problem. Same with emergency departments and hospitals. Emergency departments and hospitals, it might look like everybody's running around not knowing what's going on. But if it wasn't organized, if it didn't have some type of organization to it, the patient would suffer far more, instead of actually being treated for their illness or their injury. And what I've just described, if you on the outside looking in, looks like one thing, but when you're on the inside, it's something different. We look at it, we might see something in disarray. It might look like pandemonium. But to the people who are there, it is very, very well organized. I watched a ballet once. Okay, I'm not a big dance fan of any kind. And when you look at it, the dancers are extremely talented. They work hard, not taking that away from them. But it appears to somebody like me who doesn't know the story, who doesn't realize what they're looking at, that they're just a bunch of well-trained dancers out there, spinning and jumping. But really, the reality is it's an extremely well-orchestrated performance that tells a story, right? But if you're just kind of glancing at it, you're going, what are these people doing? We see it all the time. Sometimes sporting events can look like that, right? But the reality is those players rehearse and practice those plays time after time after time. But that's not really what I want to get into. I want to look at the people who actually choose to live in real turmoil constantly, right? They might say, oh, I thrive on chaos. The problem is these people are usually far less joyful. They might think they're happy, but they're far less joyful than the people who want to live in peace and in harmony with creation. I should probably say this because it gets complicated just a little bit. But a lot of people who actually work with creation don't realize they're working with creation. Okay? Let me go here a little bit. Think about a master craftsman works with wood. They might not realize they're working with creation. Yes, trees are created. Not what I mean. They will choose their lumber carefully. Right? If they're going to build a piece of furniture, they're going to choose that lumber very carefully. They're going to look at each piece. They're going to look at the grain, and they're going to use each piece the best way that they can, not only to make that grain look appealing in that piece of furniture, but to exaggerate the strength of that piece of lumber and make sure that the grain's running so that the joints fit properly and they don't come apart, right? They're going to have a piece of furniture that looks good and it's going to last a very, very long time. That's working with creation, working with the natural order, because there is a design to creation. Metal workers do the same thing. You know, they look at what they want to build or what's being called to build, and they'll say, well, I can use this type of metal, whether it's steel, aluminum, brass, copper, whatever it might be, and they're going to find the best way to fasten it together. Sometimes it's by welding. Sometimes it's by soldering. Sometimes you might have to drill it and put a bolt in it to get the result that you want, so that it's going to look good, it's going to last a long time, and it's going to perform exactly the way it's supposed to. Think about gardeners, right? Now, this is an easy one, right? You know, if you're going to want to grow something that grows in warm weather, you're not going to plant the seeds in the snow unless they have to be. You know, you're not going to plant tomato seeds during a snowstorm. It's just, you're not going to get tomatoes, right? If you plant something that needs warmth and sunshine, you're not going to plant it in cold weather. Home builders are the same way, right? You can't build a house from the roof down. You have to go from the foundation up. Now, a lot of these things seem like common sense. And that's because they follow the natural design of creation. You know, tomatoes grow in warm weather, so you plant them just as the weather's warming up. And the people who follow this, are far more content. I'm sorry if I just bumped that microphone. They're far more content. And there's a reason for it. The people who work against creation are always more disconnected because they're trying to go against the design of creation. Genesis chapter 1 describes, you know, God speaks. He puts out this stuff, right? Because you know, it says the earth was formless. So there's this ball of stuff out there. And then the following verses show how he brings order to that each day by each day. And it's no real difference than somebody who's going to do a project, no matter what it is. They will go gather the material they need, whatever it might be. They'll sort it out, and they will begin the steps. You know, in machining, they call it order of operations, right? You do things to produce the item you want to produce. But there's people out there. There are people out there who will do everything they can to go against it, right? They work harder. Let's put it that way. They work harder than necessary because they're not working with creation. They're working against creation. It's that simple, really. You know, think about this. They sow seeds of discontent, Doesn't matter what time of the year it is, because seeds of discontent can be sown anytime. They live in houses, and I got to be careful how I say this, where nothing gets put away. And I'm not talking about, the hoarder type house, because a lot of times people who are hoarders, they know where everything is. They file it away in their mind. You might have to walk down through pathways to get to what you're getting to, but they know where everything is. The people I'm talking about, nothing gets put away. They don't know where anything is, and then they get upset when they can't find something they need. Right? These same people, they'll smile, they'll joke, they think they're happy, but they don't realize they're working against creation. And so they're never going to have that joy in their heart that the people who work with creation have. Now, our Creator originally designed his creation to be very orderly, very tranquil. We don't live in that world today. It is very untranquil at times, right? He designed us in his image. So when we work with creation, even though we don't realize it, we're far more relaxed, we're more joyous than the people who work against it. Let me ask you a question. Would you trust crossing a bridge if the engineer that designed it in such a way that it wouldn't support your weight? Think about that. If you had even just a narrow trench or a narrow ditch, and all you put was a very, very thin piece of plywood across there, the engineer says, "Oh, it's a bridge." Would you walk across it? I don't think I would. I know better. Would you live in a house that was designed in such a way that the lumber that was cut wouldn't hold the house up if the wind blew very hard? I'm not talking about tornado, hurricane wind here either. I'm talking about, kite flying weather. I kind of doubt you'd live in that. I hope you wouldn't live in that. But there are people who try to do these things. They try to go against creation. And it amazes me that it's taken me this long to figure out why the most unhappy people I know, the most unhappy people I can think of that I have met in my life, are all of them, each and every one, have done everything they could the hard way. They're working against creation. They think they're happy, but they're not. They blame everybody or everything else for their shortcoming. And you probably know people like this. And you might have wondered yourself, why are they so contrary? Why do they seem so miserable, right? What makes them this way? And it almost seems like they're disconnected, not from mankind, not from humanity, but from something deeper. They're disconnected from creation. Think about that. Now, I wish there was a one-size-fits-all answer. Why people are like this, but there's not. Some people may have been taught by parents or teachers or other people like this that, oh, this is just natural. This is just the way we live. Some may have just given up, right? Let's face it. Some people get frustrated. I'll never be able to be one of these organized people. I'm just going to give up. And there's a third category here. Some people just choose evil instead of good. And that disconnect becomes more disconnected. And it's not like, something you can just tie a knot in and pull back together. It doesn't work that way. So I got a little bit of homework for you. As you go through the next few days, think about the way you're doing things. Think about, am I working with creation the way it's designed to work? Or am I trying to force something that I know in the long run won't work to do something it's not designed to do? If you think about it in those terms, it might surprise you. The answer may surprise you. Because I think if you're one of these people who are content in working with creation, working with things that work, whether it's wood, metal, paper, or teaching people, even teaching others how to do something, there's a way that you can make it easy, and there's a way that you can make it extremely difficult. So think about these things as you go through your next few days. Are you working in harmony with the design of creation? Or are you somebody who's trying to work against it? If you're one of those people who's trying to work against it, try working with it instead and see what happens. See what difference it makes in your life. Just something to think about for the next few days. And I do wish each and every one of you many, many blessings, everyone.